She sat beside me all night, and I didn't want the delay to end. 9 hours trapped at O'Hare. 2 strangers. 1 flickering charging outlet. She offered me half her sandwich like we'd known each other for years. I told her a secret I'd never said out loud before. By sunrise, I wasn't sure I wanted to board my flight anymore. Then she said a name I recognized, and my stomach dropped. The wedding waiting for me in Austin was about to get complicated. I just didn't know yet how complicated love could be. My name is Nora Bellamy, 29. A 3rd grade teacher from Millhaven, Ohio. A town where everyone still remembers the person you were in high school. I grew up believing love was simple. Meet a nice man, marry him. Raise children in the same church your grandmother was baptized in. I was flying to Austin for my sister Alyssa's wedding when a storm grounded every flight out of Chicago for the night. I found a corner near gate B12. My phone at 4%. My patience thinner than the airline blanket they'd handed out. That's when she sat down across from me. Dark curls pulled into a messy bun. A duffel bag stamped with a hospital logo. Rough night? She asked, holding out a granola bar like it was a peace treaty between exhausted strangers. Her name was Jordan Reyes, a travel nurse heading to a new assignment, stuck in the same delay as everyone else in that terminal. We started talking to kill time, and 2 hours passed before either of us noticed the gate agent had gone home. She had this way of listening, really listening, like my rambling stories about my students actually mattered to her. I laughed harder with her in that airport than I had in months, maybe longer than I wanted to admit. Around midnight she pulled out a deck of cards from her bag and taught me a game her grandmother used to play. Somewhere between the 3rd round and the 4th cup of bad coffee, I stopped checking the departure board altogether. She told me about growing up in Phoenix, about choosing nursing because she liked being useful in other people's worst moments. I told her things I hadn't said to anyone, not even my best friend Priya, about how tired I was of pretending. Pretending what? She asked gently, and for a second I almost lied, the way I always did. Instead I said that I know exactly who I am, and she just nodded like she understood completely. When the sun came up and my flight was finally called, she wrote her number on my boarding pass stub before I could ask. I texted her the moment I landed in Austin, feeling foolish, like a teenager who just met her first crush. She wrote back within minutes. Made it through security without you distracting me. Barely. I smiled at my phone in the rental car line until my sister Alyssa called, asking why I looked so lit up in my selfie. Just a long night, I said, which was true. And also the biggest understatement I'd made in years. The wedding week was a blur of seating charts and my mother's opinions, but Jordan texted me between shifts anyway. She was in Austin too. Turned out, 3 months into a travel nursing contract at the same hospital where my sister worked. Small world, she wrote, and I felt something tighten in my chest that had nothing to do with anxiety. We met for coffee 2 days before the wedding, and I almost canceled twice out of nerves I didn't want to name. She showed up in scrubs, straight off a shift, apologizing for smelling like a hospital instead of like someone worth meeting. I told her she smelled fine, and she laughed so hard she nearly knocked over both our cups. We talked for 3 hours that should have been 30 minutes, and neither of us moved to leave first. At the rehearsal dinner, my mother asked why I kept checking my phone, and I said it was work emails. It wasn't work emails. It was Jordan asking if I wanted to grab a drink after the toasts were finished. I said yes before I'd even finished reading the message, which surprised me more than it should have. We ended up on a rooftop bar downtown, the Austin skyline lit up gold, both of us a little too aware of the silence. I like you, Nora, she said finally. No games, no hedging. Just the plain truth laid out between us. I didn't answer right away, because admitting I felt the same meant admitting something I'd buried for a decade. I like you too, I finally said. And the relief on both our faces made the whole night feel unreal. We didn't kiss that night. Not yet. But she walked me to my car and held my hand the entire way. At the wedding the next day, I danced with my sister and cried during the vows for reasons I couldn't fully explain. Jordan wasn't invited, but she texted thinking of you, right as the ceremony started, and I nearly lost it at the altar. That evening, after the guests thinned out, I slipped away and drove straight to the address she'd sent me. She opened the door in jeans and an old college sweatshirt, and I forgot every reason I had for hesitating. We kissed for the first time in her kitchen, slow and certain, like something that had been circling us for weeks finally landed. I've never felt this sure about anything, I whispered, and she pulled me closer instead of answering, which said enough. I flew home to Ohio 3 days later with a secret tucked so carefully inside my chest I thought it might show on my face. Priya picked me up from the airport and immediately asked who I'd been texting the whole drive from baggage claim. I almost told her right there in the car, but the words caught. Old habits stronger than new courage. Jordan and I talked every night after that. Video calls stretching past midnight. Both of us too tired to hang up first. She sent me photos of Austin sunsets. I sent her photos of my classroom's very unglamorous bulletin boards. I miss you in a way that doesn't make sense, she said one night. Considering we've only spent a handful of days together. I understood exactly what she meant, 'cause I felt it too. An ache shaped like someone I barely knew yet. 6 weeks in, she flew to Ohio for a long weekend, and I introduced her to Priya as a friend from a work conference. Priya's eyebrows shot up the second Jordan left the room, and she said, "Nora, that is not how you look at a work friend." I didn't deny it. Not exactly. But I asked her to give me time before I said the words out loud. "Take your time," Priya said, squeezing my hand. "But don't make her wait outside a closet you built for other people." That weekend, walking through the park near my apartment, Jordan asked if I'd ever told my parents I liked women. I said no. And she asked if I planned to. And I said I honestly didn't know, which was the truest thing I could offer. My father was a deacon at Millhaven Baptist. My mother ran the church potluck committee with the precision of a general. Growing up, I'd heard enough sermons about choices and lifestyles to build a wall around a part of myself I never let out. I loved my parents fiercely, but I also knew exactly how their faces would fall if I told them the truth. Jordan never pushed, but I could see it cost her something every time I introduced her as just a friend. "I'm not ashamed of you," I told her one night, and she said, "I know. I'm just tired of being hidden." We fought for the first time over that. Quietly. In a parking lot after dinner. Both of us too hurt to raise our voices. "I need time," I said. "I need you," she answered. Not forever hidden in a boarding pass and a secret phone. I drove home that night and cried until my face hurt, terrified I was about to lose the best thing that had happened to me. The next morning she texted first, "I'm not going anywhere. I just need you to want this as loudly as I do." I wrote back that I did. That I was scared. Not unsure. And she said scared was something we could work through together. We started making plans then. Real ones. Not just video calls, a visit every month. Holidays split between 2 states. For the first time in my life, I let myself imagine a future that didn't look like the one I'd been raised for. The obstacles started small. The way storms usually do. With a single dark cloud you convince yourself will pass. My mother found a photo on my phone. One where Jordan's arm was wrapped around my waist at a lake in Michigan. "Who is this girl to you?" she asked. Her voice careful in a way that told me she already suspected the answer. I froze. And in that silence my mother's face did something I'd never seen before. It closed like a door. "She's someone I care about," I said. And my mother set down the dish towel and left the kitchen without another word. For 2 weeks. My parents barely called. And when they did, the conversations were about weather and casseroles. Nothing real. Priya told me to give them time. But time felt like a slow bleed. Each silent day another small loss. Then, at Sunday dinner, my father finally spoke. His voice low. "Your mother and I didn't raise you for this life. You raised me to be honest, I said, shaking. And this is the most honest I've ever been with you. He didn't answer, just stared at his plate. And I understood that some silences are their own kind of rejection. I told Jordan that night, and she was quiet for a long moment before saying, I'm so sorry. I know how much they matter to you. They matter, I said. But so do you. And I'm done choosing which parts of my life get to exist out loud. The school. Things got harder too. The district was conservative, and I'd heard rumors of a teacher let go over moral conduct the year before. I kept Jordan out of my classroom stories, out of the staff lounge, out of every place someone might repeat what I said. Priya warned me once, gently, that hiding at work while living openly elsewhere would eventually catch up to me. I told her I wasn't ready to risk my job, my paycheck, my classroom full of 8-year-olds who trusted me completely. I get it, she said. But you can't build a whole life in the space between two closets. Nora. Then came the twist I never saw coming. My sister Alyssa mentioned, Fan, that Jordan's brother used to date someone from Millhaven. Small world, Alyssa said, laughing. Not realizing the name she'd just spoken was Caleb Reyes, my college boyfriend of 3 years. I called Jordan immediately, my hands shaking, and asked if her brother's name was Caleb, and she went silent on the line. Caleb is my brother, she confirmed slowly, which means you dated my brother before you met me at that airport. We both sat with that for a long moment, the strangeness of it settling like dust after a collapse. Does that change anything? Asked, terrified of the answer. And she said, it changes how weird our Thanksgiving might get. We laughed, nervously at first, then for real. Because the alternative was letting the coincidence become something heavier than it needed to be. So, it planted a seed of doubt I couldn't shake. Had some part of this always been tangled up with my past? Caleb, when he found out, was surprisingly kind about it, texting me only once. Glad you found someone who sees you. Even if it's my sister. That small grace from an unexpected place made me braver than I'd felt in weeks. Like the universe was clearing a path. But my parents' silence stretched into a month, and I started to wonder if some wounds simply wouldn't close in time. Jordan's next travel contract offer came through. 6 months in Denver. A huge career opportunity she'd been chasing for years. Come with me, she said, only half joking. And I felt the ground under my careful life start to tilt. I couldn't leave my classroom mid-year, and she couldn't turn down the position. So we agreed to try long distance again. Harder this time. The escalation began the week she left, when a video call caught me crying in my classroom after the kids had gone home. What happened? She asked. And I told her a parent had complained about a gay pride sticker on my desk, put there by a student's mom. Not me. The principal, Mr. Holbrook, called me into his office the next morning, his tone careful, his questions sharper than usual. Is there anything about your personal life I should know about? Bellamy? He asked, and I understood exactly what he meant. I said no. My voice steady even as my hands weren't, and he let it go. But the fear had already taken root. That night I told Jordan I was scared, really scared, of losing the job I'd worked 7 years to build. I won't ask you to blow up your life for me, she said. But I need to know you're not asking me to disappear either. I promised her I wasn't, even as I kept our relationship folded small and private, tucked away from anyone who might use it against me. Then Priya, my closest friend for a decade, made a choice that shattered something I thought was unbreakable between us. At a school fundraiser, tipsy on wine and frustrated that I still hadn't come out to our friend group, she said too much. Nora's seeing someone amazing, she announced to a table that included another teacher and, unknowingly, Mr. Holbrook's wife. A woman. Isn't that wonderful? The table went quiet, and I felt the floor drop out from under me. my careful walls collapsing in a single sentence. I didn't speak to Priya for a week. The betrayal cut deeper because it came wrapped in something that looked like pride, not malice. I was trying to help, she said, crying on my doorstep. I'm so sorry. I thought if people just saw how happy you were. That wasn't yours to give away, I said. And for the first time in our friendship, I meant every cold word of it. Monday morning, Mr. Halbert called me in again. And this time there was no pretending the conversation was about anything else. Parents have raised concerns, he said carefully, about your suitability given recent information. I need you to understand the position this puts the district in. I sat there, done, realizing that 7 years of 5-star evaluations meant nothing against a rumor spoken over party wine. Am I being fired? I asked directly, and he said, not yet. But I'd advise discretion going forward. For your own sake. I left that office shaking, humiliated, and furious in a way I'd never let myself be before in my entire careful life. I called Jordan from my car, and for the first time, I told her everything. The fear. The threat. The years of hiding. I'm coming home this weekend, she said. Not to fix it. Just to be there while you figure out what you want to do. My mother called that same week. Her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. I heard what happened at your school. Are you all right? I was too surprised to answer at first. I hadn't expected concern to be the thing that finally broke her silence. I'm not all right, I admitted. But I'm not going to hide anymore. Mom. Not even for you and Dad. She was quiet for a long time, then said something I never expected. Your grandmother wasn't the only one who kept secrets in this family. What do you mean? Asked, and she said we should talk in person, not over the phone, and hung up before I could push further. I drove to my parents' house that weekend, my stomach in knots, unsure whether I was walking into forgiveness or another door closing. My mother met me at the kitchen table with an old shoebox. The cardboard soft with age, tied shut with faded ribbon. Inside were letters, dozens of them, addressed to a woman named Ruth, written in handwriting I recognized instantly as my grandmother's. Your grandmother loved a woman once, my mother said quietly, before she married your grandfather, before the church told her who to be. I sat frozen, reading fragments of letters that spoke of a love my grandmother had buried her entire life, never spoken aloud. I found these after she died, my mother said. I never told anyone. I didn't know what to do with it. Is that why you were so afraid? Asked, and my mother nodded, tears finally falling, decades of unspoken grief surfacing at once. I watched what hiding did to her, my mother said. I didn't want that for you. But I also didn't know how to say that. For the first time, I understood my mother's silence wasn't hatred. It was fear dressed up as protection, inherited and passed down like a scar. I don't want to hide. Mom, I said. I want to be happy. Loudly. The way Grandma never got to be. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. The first real touch we'd shared in over a month. Then don't, she said. Whatever happens with your job, whatever people say, don't you dare bury this the way she did. I left that house lighter than I'd felt in weeks, carrying my grandmother's letters and my mother's blessing in the same bag. The climax arrived faster than I expected. The following Monday, when the school board called an emergency meeting about staff conduct policy, word had spread that a teacher's personal life had become a community concern, and though no names were said, everyone knew who they meant. Priya, desperate to make things right, started a petition among parents who supported me, gathering over 200 signatures in 3 days. I hadn't asked her to. I found out only when she showed up at my door with a folder thick with signed pages. I know I broke something, she said. Let me try to help fix it, even if you never fully forgive me. The night before the board meeting, Jordan sat with me at my kitchen table while I wrote out what I planned to say. You don't owe them a speech, she said. You don't owe anyone your whole story just to keep a job you already earned. I know, I said. But I'm tired of my silence protecting other people's comfort instead of my own life. The board meeting was packed. Parents on both sides. Mr. Holbrook sitting stiffly at the front table, avoiding my eyes entirely. When they called my name, I stood, my hands trembling. My grandmother's letter folded in my pocket like a small piece of armor. My name is Nora Bellamy, I began. And for 7 years, I have loved teaching in this district more than almost anything in my life. I am also a lesbian, I said, the word landing plainly in a room that went utterly silent around it. That fact has never once affected how I teach a child to read, or how I comfort a kid who scraped their knee. I told them about my grandmother, about Ruth, about a love hidden so completely it disappeared from history until a shoebox brought it back. I refuse to be another woman in this family whose life gets folded up and put away out of fear, I said. A murmur moved through the crowd, some parents nodding, others crossing their arms. The room split exactly the way I'd feared it might be. Then, unexpectedly, a parent I barely knew stood up, a father of one of my former students, and asked to speak. Ms. Bellamy taught my son to love reading after 3 other teachers gave up on him, he said. I don't care who she loves. One by one. Other parents stood, echoing similar sentiments, until the room felt less like a trial and more like a reckoning. Mr. Holbrook, visibly uncomfortable, finally spoke. The district has received no evidence of misconduct. This meeting was, perhaps, premature. It wasn't a full apology, but it was enough of a retreat that I felt the tight fear in my chest finally start to loosen. The board voted, quietly and almost reluctantly, to take no action against me, citing a lack of any actual policy violation. I walked out of that building into the parking lot where Jordan was waiting, and I finally let myself cry without shame. You did that, she said, wrapping her arms around me. Nobody handed that to you. You stood up and said the true thing. That night, my father showed up at my apartment, unannounced, holding a casserole dish like an offering he didn't know how to phrase in words. I don't understand everything, he admitted, standing awkwardly in my doorway. But I don't want to lose my daughter over what I don't understand. I invited him in, and for the first time, he shook Jordan's hand and asked her, sincerely, about her work in Denver. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation, but it was a door cracked open where before there had only been a locked one. Priya and I slowly found our way back to rebuilding trust the way you rebuild anything broken, carefully, and one honest conversation at a time. I'll never out someone again, she promised. I learned that the hard way, and I'm sorry it cost you as much as it did. With Jordan's contract in Denver nearing its end, we finally had the conversation we'd been circling for months. What came next for us? I got offered a permanent position here in Ohio, she said, at the Children's Hospital. If you want me to take it, I want you to take whatever makes you happiest, I said. But yes. Yet, I want you to stay. She accepted the job 2 days later. And just like that, the long distance that had defined our whole relationship began to end. We found a small house together on the edge of Millhaven, close enough to my parents that Sunday dinner slowly became a new normal. My mother, in a gesture that undid me completely, hung one of my grandmother's letters framed on our living room wall. So Ruth gets remembered too, she said simply. And I understood it as the truest apology she knew how to give. The school. A few families pulled their kids from my class, but far more stayed. And the following year enrollment actually grew. I started a small after-school reading club, quietly welcoming to any kid who felt like an outsider, without ever naming why I'd built it. Alyssa, my sister, asked me to be her daughter's godmother. And at the baptism, Jordan stood beside me without a single whispered question from anyone. Caleb sent a wedding invitation of his own 18 months later, and Jordan and I attended together. No explanations required from either of us. My father slowly started introducing Jordan as my daughter's partner, instead of just Nora's friend, a small phrase that meant everything. One evening, going through my grandmother's old shoebox again, I found one letter I'd somehow missed, dated the year she died. In it, she'd written to Ruth, "I hope someday, a girl in this family gets to love out loud the way I never could." I read it to Jordan on our porch, both of us crying. Both of us certain my grandmother had somehow known this moment would come. 2 years after that overnight delay at O'Hare, Jordan proposed. Not with fireworks, but quietly. In the same kitchen where we'd first kissed. "I don't need a grand gesture," she said. "I just need you." Loudly. "For the rest of my life. If you'll have me." I said yes before she'd even finished the sentence. The same way I'd said yes to coffee, to love, to myself. Finally. Completely. We married the following spring in my parents' backyard. My mother sobbing through the whole ceremony. My grandmother's letter tucked into my bouquet. Priya stood as my maid of honor. And in her toast, she apologized publicly, then thanked me for teaching her what real love costs and gives. My father walked me down a short garden aisle, and at the end of it, he didn't hesitate before hugging Jordan too. Looking back, I think about that stranger on a delayed flight who handed me a granola bar and changed my whole life. Some storms ground you exactly where you're meant to land, in a plastic airport chair, beside the person you were always going to love. I never did make that first flight to Austin on time, but I have never once regretted the delay. Vandy.